War is cruelty. The crueler it is, the sooner it will be over.
Well, the devil went down to Georgia and was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bind because he was way behind. He was willing to make a deal.
Sherman's March. Sunday, April 22nd at 9, as only the History Channel can bring you.
Alright, so that little short video that you guys just saw leads into the lesson for today. The essential question: were Sherman's actions justified? Was what he did necessary? The exact wording of the question: do you think Sherman's method of attack was necessary, and why? So in May of 1863, General Robert E. Lee of the Confederates won a major battle at Chancellorsville. But in this battle, Stonewall Jackson actually gets hit by friendly fire. And because of that, he has to have his left arm amputated in an attempt to save his life. He actually ends up dying a few days after the battle from infection and disease, the #1 cause of death during the Civil War. But when this happened, Robert E. Lee actually said this: Jackson has lost his left arm, but I just lost my right. That's how important Stonewall Jackson was to the Confederacy. Lee at this point attacks the North once again. You know, it worked out so well last time at the Battle of Antietam, you know, the bloodiest battle in American war history, or the bloodiest day in American war history. This is the Battle of Gettysburg. Lee and his 65,000 men begin the battle on July 1st, 1863. Confederates push the Union back the first day. On the second day, Lee attacks the left edge of the Union forces and set up an attack for July 3rd on the center. This attack is called Pickett's Charge. It is a horrible loss for the Confederacy. They charge up to the top of the hill called Cemetery Ridge. And most of the men are killed by the time they get to the top, or by the time they get to the top, they are so tired they cannot continue with the battle. Remember, these flags right here are the flags of the armies of Virginia. That's Lee's men. It's not the Confederate flag, it's the flag of the armies of Virginia. Lee is defeated at Gettysburg after Pickett's Charge, but once again is able to escape. 51,000 troops die in the 3 days of Gettysburg. This is the most bloody battle, most costly battle in U.S. war history. 51,000 troops over 3 days. It's not the single worst day, but it is the single worst battle that we've ever fought. Lincoln now feels confident that America has a chance to win, and that is when he gives the famous Gettysburg Address. Gettysburg Address, the 407 years ago. The word score means 20 years, so 407 years ago would be 87 years. So 87 years ago, our forefathers set forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the cause that all men are created equal. So he's taking the words of Thomas Jefferson and basically saying how we were created as a country where all men should be created equal. Once again, he is not, or was not stating this earlier about slavery. But on January 1st, 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation changes the whole purpose of the war, and now the war is a war on slavery. So he is taking this as an opportunity to express to our nation that things have changed. Lincoln was fed up with McClellan's hesitation, like what happened at Gettysburg, like what happened at Antietam, and so Lincoln replaces him with Grant. He moves Grant from the western part of the war on the Mississippi River, part of the Anaconda Plan, now to the east to start to squeeze in. And in 1864, he begins pushing towards Richmond, Grant does, fighting a number of battles, losing more than twice the number of soldiers that the Confederates do, but that's okay because the North has more men. Grant's methodical approach runs the Confederates out of supplies and out of reinforcements, but his efforts stall at Petersburg. However, so Grant calls off the attack and lays siege to the city, trying to starve them out. Lincoln once again faces disappointment of failing to capture Richmond. But Lincoln is now afraid. It is 1864 and it is an election year. And his opponent for the election is McClellan. If McClellan wins this election, first of all, the most likely thing that's going to happen is McClellan is going to call off the war. He's going to be like, South, you're gone. Bye. Go. You be your own country. War is ending. And then all of Lincoln's legacy, his entire presidency, will have been for nothing. And Lincoln's afraid that he will lose. So he needs to find a way to win. So he gets this scraggly-haired guy right here. His name is William Tecumseh Sherman. And he provides the victory that Lincoln needs to guarantee himself the war. What happens is something called Sherman's March to the Sea. Sherman first attacks the city of Atlanta and burns Atlanta to the ground. On September 2nd, 1864, when he lays siege to Atlanta, he states this: war is war, not popularity seeking. Basically saying, I'm not doing this to become popular. In fact, many people wanted Sherman, because he does become known as war hero, to run for president after this, and he denies it. All right, he says, I will not be nominated, and if I win somehow, I will not accept the presidency. He will not accept election. Sherman hated politics. Sherman also hated war, but he understands that it is a necessary evil in order to maintain society sometimes. But he also understands how violent and how brutal war is. Sherman did not follow any rules of war. The March to the Sea starts in Atlanta, goes all the way to Savannah, and then all the way up through South Carolina. This is the Electoral College map. So Lincoln's worries are pretty unfounded. McClellan won Kentucky, New Jersey, and Delaware. Lost everything else. So Lincoln dominated this election. Sherman's victory did cause that landslide victory. Sherman stated he would make Georgia howl, basically in pain. Sherman used a method called total war. Total war means destroying everything in your path. Houses, property, livestock, land, communications, transportation. Destroyed everything and liberated all the slaves along the way, because the Emancipation Proclamation, once the North takes it, slaves are free. But he is laying waste to the South. 300-mile path from Atlanta, 300-mile wide path from Atlanta to Savannah. So it's that long, but 300 miles wide. Complete and utter destruction. This picture that you guys can see right here, Sherman actually makes a detour to make sure he can go through Columbia, South Carolina. Columbia, South Carolina, capital of South Carolina. And South Carolina was the first to secede. So Sherman wants to make an example out of South Carolina, and he makes a curve to his path to go through South Carolina. This picture right here is after Sherman has gone through. This is a picture of downtown Columbia. Where this picture is taken would be from the State House steps, looking at downtown South Carolina, or downtown Columbia. So this is what's left in that area. The entire city of Columbia, South Carolina was burned. Now there's controversy on who actually did the burning, whether it was Northerners or Southerners. Southerners said it was Sherman's men. Northerners say it was the South trying to stop the North from taking the cotton. So the South set fire to it, and this fire just got out of control. Either way, Columbia was destroyed. Mid-April of 1865, Grant has Robert E. Lee surrounded at a place called Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia. Now, I want you guys to understand this. Appomattox Courthouse is not a freaking courthouse. It's the name of the city, all right? Appomattox Courthouse is the city in Virginia. Grant demands that Lee surrender. And Lee states this. He said, "I would rather die 1,000 deaths." But he also realizes this. If he doesn't surrender, his men are going to starve to death. He really has no other choice. His men will die if he does not surrender. On April 9th, 1865, Robert E. Lee does surrender with the assurances that his men will be fed. They will be allowed to keep their property, meaning horses and guns. And they will not be tried for treason. That's really like way more than anybody could ask for. Grant, commander of the North, prevents his troops from cheering in victory, stating the war is over. The rebels are our countrymen again. So he's basically saying, don't cheer against them. Don't create any hard feelings. The war is over now. We need to be on the same side again. The Civil War results in the death of nearly 620,000 Americans in 4 years. All the slaves are free in the South, or in the areas that were in rebellion. But now all those slaves have no jobs. They have no homes. They have no education. The Southern economy had been completely destroyed by cotton diplomacy and by enormous inflation. The value of Confederate money dropped tremendously towards the end of the war. The soldiers had been paid in Confederate money. All of it's now worthless. They've got worthless money. That's what basically inflation is. Sherman's march to the sea has destroyed land. It's destroyed property. It's destroyed transportation. It's destroyed communication. The entire infrastructure of the South has been wiped out. And now the country has to find a way to fix problems between the North and South. Just because the war is over does not mean the North and the South are going to get along. It does not mean that the South's feelings have changed. It simply means that the North has beaten down the South so drastically that the South has had no choice but to surrender. So that's the situation where we are at now. Now the question was Sherman's methods necessary? Remember this, the Emancipation Proclamation said that if a state was in the area of a rebellion on January 1st, 1863, they would lose their slaves. Well, after January 1st, 1863, it's either win or die, really, for the South. Because if the South loses, they lose all of that money. So when you're asked, was what Sherman did necessary? Look at it this way. Sherman said this: the crueler war is, the faster it will end. Think about World War II. We dropped the atomic bomb on Japan. How much longer would the war have gone on if we didn't? But also, the South will be broke if they lose this war. How bad do you have to beat somebody down to force them to basically give up hundreds of millions of dollars? That's where we're at with this. Now, were the actions justified of burning everything, destroying everything? That's up for you guys to tell me. Just make sure you got evidence, make sure you give support. All right, you guys have this lesson, a Kahoot, and a test to get done. Remember, use your resources. Get everything done.
See you guys later.